Why did Genghis Khan, the conqueror of half the known world, turn back from the borders of India? Nearly 800 years ago, a Mongol nomad established one of the largest empires in human history, stretching from the Black Sea to the Pacific Ocean. His name was Temujin, later known to the world as Genghis Khan. According to the secret history of the Mongols, when he was born, a clot of blood was found in his palm. Among the local people, this was seen as a sign that the child would become a great conqueror. However, Genghis Khan's early life was far from easy. His father was poisoned to death by enemies, leaving him abandoned and vulnerable at a very young age. Because of the word Khan, many people assume he was Muslim, whereas Khan was actually a title. He was Mongol and followed shamanism, a belief system centered on the worship of the sky. Genghis Khan spent his early life in poverty, but the series of conquests he began at the age of 50 placed him among the greatest conquerors in history. Under his leadership, the Mongols ruled over all of China, Central Asia, Iran, Eastern Europe, and large parts of Russia. Genghis Khan's armies reached Austria, Finland, Croatia, Hungary, Poland, Vietnam, Burma, Japan, and even Indonesia. In his book, Epic of the Mongols, F.E. Krauss writes that Genghis Khan's empire covered nearly 12 million square miles, an area equal to the African continent and larger than North America. In comparison, the Roman Empire was far smaller. When we examine the achievements of other world conquerors, Alexander the Great inherited an army built by his father Philip. Similarly, Julius Caesar commanded Roman military power shaped by 300 years of history. Napoleon was able to rule because of the public support he gained after the French Revolution. In contrast, Genghis Khan had to create his own traditions and, while confronting countless political and social challenges, carved out his place in history through sheer struggle. As a young man, he began learning the art of hunting birds with a falcon. At that time, this skill was considered essential for a future leader. Genghis Khan never learned to read or write. At the age of 13, he killed his stepbrother. In his book, Genghis Khan, The Man Who Conquered the World, Frank McLynn writes that committing murder at such a young age shows that Genghis Khan was naturally ruthless. Even in his youth, he had developed the ability to think strategically about the future. He viewed his stepbrother as a rival who could claim succession. Gradually, Genghis Khan began to establish himself as a young military commander. He spent almost his entire life in tents and on battlefields, leaving him little time to focus on civil administration. The famous Iranian historian Minhaj al-Siraj Huzjani wrote that Genghis Khan possessed extraordinary ability and was like a god to his army. According to Minhaj al-Siraj, when Genghis Khan reached Khorasan, he was 65 years old. He was tall and handsome with very little facial hair, which had already turned white. His eyes were like those of a cat, and his body was filled with immense energy. The flaws of Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan's personality may have had many dark aspects, but most historians believe there is no doubt about his political abilities. Russian historian George Vernadsky writes in his book Mongols and Russia that Genghis Khan was an unmatched master of military strategy. His ability to read people's minds and understand human psychology was remarkable, and his imagination was equally impressive. It is also said that Genghis Khan was extremely cautious and highly observant. Genghis Khan's dangerous temper. Genghis Khan often lost his temper. In the 1220s, after conquering Transoxiana, he employed a translator and clerk to handle correspondence with Muslim princes in West Asia. In his book Tabakat-i-Nasiri, Minhaj al-Siraj writes that when Genghis Khan learned that the Prince of Mosul was planning to attack Syria, he ordered the clerk to write a letter warning the prince not to dare such an action. However, the clerk used words that carried a tone of respect. When Genghis Khan read the letter, he became enraged and, trembling with anger, said, "You are a traitor." After reading this letter, he will become even more arrogant. Genghis Khan clapped his hands, summoned a soldier, and ordered the clerk to be executed. stories of cruelty and generosity. Jacob Abbott writes in his book The History of Genghis Khan that once an elderly woman pleaded with the Mongols to spare her life. She promised to give them a precious pearl in return. When Genghis Khan's soldiers asked her where the pearl was, the woman said she had swallowed it. The Mongols, thinking perhaps other women had done the same to hide pearls, tore open the stomachs of many women in their search for the valuable gems. Genghis Khan's return from India. As Genghis Khan's armies approached the borders of India, they faced challenges unlike any they had encountered on the steppes. The dense jungles, hot, humid climate, and seasonal monsoons made it difficult for his cavalry to maneuver and maintain supply lines. Moreover, India's fortified cities and organized kingdoms posed strategic and logistical risks that could not be ignored. Genghis Khan's primary focus remained in Central Asia and Persia, regions where his political and military objectives were clearer and more attainable. Weighed against these challenges, the Mongol leader decided to withdraw, demonstrating his strategic foresight. It was not defeat, but careful calculation that guided him away from India, allowing him to concentrate on campaigns where his army could achieve decisive success.